our humanity. So if you're wondering what ROH stands for, that's kind of what it stands for. It's restoring our humanity. It's a very primitive YouTube set, as you can tell. It's we're outside here at a campground. We're camp hosts. So on this tradition where or not tradition, this journey that we've taken in order to understand ourselves better, to understand the world, we've gone mobile. We're left everything behind, packed everything up in an RV, and took off. And so now we're on a beach in the Pacific Northwest, and it's amazing out here. So to my paltry amount of viewers, I apologize for the primitiveness of the videos, but I hope that we can bring something to the table that not a lot of people are talking about. And what I want to understand and go through on this path to finding out who we are as human, and how can we better either safeguard against us becoming monsters, and not just saying ourselves, but humanity in general. How do we go about that? How do we safeguard ourselves from trampling on other people's liberty? You know, some of the most violent things in history have been because we didn't allow people their freedom, or we wanted to take it away as humans, as another human to another. And we're seeing it right now, and I believe we are counting down to some sort of clock. I don't know what, but it just seems like there's a lot of things going on right now, and they're all heading in the same direction, and it ain't good. So, we're going to talk about one of those today. Media's up in arms. Trump is going to end welfare as we know it, and I think Drudge Report said that Trump is going to end Bill Clinton's idea of welfare. Okay, well, actually it wasn't really Bill Clinton's idea of welfare. It was actually Lyndon B. Johnson's, and to quote him, this is his quote back, during the Vietnam War, long before I was born. I wasn't even a twinkle in my eye. He said, "I will have those N-word," standing for the poor black population, voting Democratic for the next 200 years. And, well, he wasn't wrong. The majority of African Americans this past election voted for the Democrats, and historically have basically since the 60s. They somehow painted themselves as a party of civil rights, even though they weren't. It was really, truth be told, it technically was the Republicans. Do I believe either side on this? No. I think they're both garbage. So, let's break this down. So if welfare was intended to help poor families, well, I understand that. We do need to help the needy. But usually it was done through avenues like churches, etc. So like in the Mormon church, if you're hard up and you just need help getting by, you can go talk to your bishop. And sometimes the pastor. A lot of times a church used to, but it should. Almost every church should have this. Like a slush fund, either to buy flyers, buy flowers, help somebody out in need. The churches should, and they used to, have their own food bank and provide help to the needy. I'm not saying every church. I don't really care what your denomination is. And I swear to God, if somebody leaves this "I'm an atheist" thing in there, guys, you're as bad as vegans now. Just stop. We don't care that you're an atheist. We don't care that you're a vegan. Nobody gives a shit. We really don't. Whatever God you choose to pray or not to pray to, that's up to you. That's none of my damn business. I don't care to know, honestly. But churches, mosques, synagogues, even if you wanted to say the Church of Satan could help out their own community. It's about charity. It's about giving to those that don't have it. So that's what it used to be. And when we're looking at what's happening now, the state took that over, that role, which, I get it. If there's a woman whose husband was abusing them, that's bad. Go to the church. Go to the people in the community. Go to a different community. And in some of those situations, it is absolutely justifiable. I'd give my own left arm to help them out, and I have in the past. But what we're looking at right now is a welfare system that is encouraging breaking up the family unit and familial structure. So at first this wasn't really apparent. You only had a couple households where the dad left, and they were usually social outcasts, or the dad came back, and there's always been deadbeat dads. There always will. But what happens when you encourage and promote this through the state-sponsored sugar daddy? So now the state has become the sugar daddy, and the familial structure doesn't need to be there. And you have more incentives, because every kid you have is more incentive to not work, to not do anything but do nothing. Well, we talk about this graph where if you say you're making this much on welfare and you'd make this much working. Well, but once you start working, you can always grow out of that. With welfare and poverty, it's just here. Unless you have a kid, and then you're here and here and more and more and more. And it'll keep going up. Well, let's talk about that for a second. A, you're limiting everyone in that area by saying you're not going to be able to work. So nobody goes out and tries to start a business unless it's on the black market. So you're limiting entrepreneurship. You're limiting what America is. That's the foundation of America, is doing what you need to do to provide for you and yours. And you're cutting that completely out. So, you're cutting out entrepreneurship. You're cutting out people going out into society and learning how to be a working citizen. Once again, I don't care about race. I know it exists. That's not my thing. Right now we're talking about how we can do things to better improve ourselves. And with this welfare system, it's done the exact opposite of that. As far as I'm concerned, right now, the welfare system is the biggest detriment to society. Not because they're helping people out, because they're not. They're trapping them in these systems. And by trapping, it's not... welfare is a version of social constructs, if you're going to talk about a social construct. But they're not trapping them in there because of their race, or their income or poverty level. They're creating a mindset that says, I don't need no stinking man. I don't need it at all. When facts tell otherwise. If you have, let's say, you were married and you had a kid after you got married, and you started working a job and kept working the job, the chances of your life being infinitely better is astounding. I mean, it's like tenfold. Ben Shapiro's got the numbers, a couple other guys, but the chances of you falling into prison and going to become an alcoholic are actually very low. The chances that you'll have a great life are very high. And the other part is, if the kids of that, or the offspring of that type of family, always does better the next generation. Or most times, once again, there's always people that don't. I almost was one. So, coming from this point of view, you have to think that if you take and you just rip apart the familial structure, and not just by the welfare system, but also by families not sticking together, not working through their problems. It's a disposable marriage, a disposable relationship, just like your disposable cameras from back in the day. Oh, I'm done with it, throw it away. Your camera, your phone. You take your phone, I'm done with my iPhone 5, I got to throw it away and get the iPhone 10. We need to get back to a generation that fixes things. That I don't need to buy a new one. I still have the old one and it works great. When we started the welfare system, we started a society of throwing everything away. And it's not just the welfare system, but it's what created. Between that and consumerism, well, I mean, we lost our traditions. But once again, we're going back to welfare. If you keep traditions alive, you keep the familial structure, and you can be, two males in a relationship like this, or two females. It doesn't matter. The thing that matters is both the male and female roles have to be filled. You can have two gay men as long as there's a mother and a father. It doesn't have to be a gender thing, and it's not. You have two females. One's got to be the mother, and one's got to be the father to the baby, or to the child. That role has to be fulfilled. It just has to. There's nothing else you can do unless, you're going to have an extremely maladjusted child, and they can not be influenced by it. It's very rare and it's very hard to do. We do it. Biology is there for a reason. That's how we've evolved. That's why we're still here. If we didn't evolve and we didn't adhere to our biology, we wouldn't be here. We'd be dead. Those that didn't adhere to it are dead. Think about it like that. You didn't evolve, or you didn't match together with a system of how humans are coming along. You just didn't make it. You didn't reproduce. You didn't live long enough to reproduce, or, there are other side effects therein. But when you give an incentive for having more kids and taking the father out of it, you are basically destroyed a society. And the biggest glaring error of the welfare state is South Africa, in which only 6% of the population, 6% of the population pays 99.9% in taxes. For every one taxpayer, there are 5 people living off that one taxpayer. It is the largest welfare state in the world. And what's happened? You have murder statistics that are outrageous. You have sexual assaults like nothing we've ever seen in the world. And the saddest part is the rape rate is astronomical. The scarier part is the baby rape rate. 10% of all South Africa's rapes are of children 3 years of age and under. We need to get back to a family structure. Find a beautiful woman or a beautiful man and get together with him, get married. And if you're a young woman, do not go into that stupid fucking party life that every Hollywood movie depicts that women just need to go down. It's not in Sex and the City. The answers for everything in the universe are not in Sex and the City or partying downtown. It's fun to do every once in a while, but I'll tell you what, the more women that go down this cosmopolitan, metropolitan path, and their ovaries dry up by the time they're 35 years old, the more depressed and the worse society we will become. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's biology. You need a family structure. And your ovaries are going to tell you at one point in time, I need a kid. But you can't find a good man because you're in the middle of the fucking city. That's where the predatory men are. It's because they can be, because there's no incentive for men to settle down anymore. You know, men are taking a sexual exodus right now, and it's going to keep continuing. I'll tell you what, if some shit doesn't change, men would just go get a sex doll. Fuck, get married. Why would I get married when she can take half my shit? Why would you? I mean, you have a society that is literally geared towards single people for the rest of her life. Marriage, keep talking about it's a social construct with these fucking yahoos in college. No, it's not. Humans are literally wired to love one person. They can have many intimate relationships, but they're wired to have a partner. It doesn't matter what gender or race or sex you are. That's how we're wired. That's who we are. It's not a religious thing. It's not some men want to be powerful thing. In fact, right now it's the opposite. You know, we have to look at traditions. We cannot throw them out and say, look, some fucking revolutionary idea. You know, what we're looking at right now, the 60s and the communist movements of the 60s and the 20s and 30s and the turn of the century, you know, 1900s, there is a potential that communism, just that fucking idea, has ruined the world. I mean, I'm still putting some pieces together on this, but it looks like almost every horrific problem we have right now was literally cause and effect of communism. And the shitty and scary part of it is that these young kids that are voting for Bernie Sanders don't understand that socialism's end game is communism. Stalin said it himself. That's what is going to happen. In Nazi Germany, they would have become communists if they had had long enough time for that to come to fruition. You know, and what's really interesting is the two largest cases that communism shouldn't ever exist in the world ever again, not just in that they've killed 150 million people. Not just that. You could say the two biggest things that happened in American world history that are, some of them are appalling. I mean, everything that communism's done has been appalling. But the two things that are least talked about, it was the Jewish communists coming out of Germany that went into Russia that started the Bolshevik Revolution and caused a lot of Lenin to come into power and Stalin, etc., right? Okay? Hitler and the German people started hating Jews because of that. They didn't want communism. So a sense of pride and nationalism developed, and then all of a sudden, well, we're going to hate Jews because they were the ones that tried to implement communism. Well, you look down to South Africa with the Rhodesians, and they knew, because the British did it to them before. They pitted the blacks against the whites. The Afrikaners versus the Bantu tribe, or tribes. Now, the funny thing is, in South Africa, there was another tribe that was exterminated by the Bantus. The Afrikaners didn't do it. You know, and the Zulus and some of those guys were part of the Bantu tribes. The Bantu tribes came out of the north, pushing south, and killed all the black tribes that were there, because when the South Africans went there, there was no native black population down there. They moved on, and they were in grasslands. They weren't a permanent resident. The Bantus came in to try and push them out, and the British pitted the Bantu tribes against the Afrikaners. So the Afrikaners saw this, and this is why apartheid laws happened. It's because they were afraid that the communists would get in with the Bantu tribes and come in and overtake and kill all the Afrikaners. Right? That's why the apartheid laws existed. They were scared to death of communism and socialism because they saw what happened in Europe. And they weren't stupid. Stop thinking our ancestors were stupid. We wouldn't be here if they were. We wouldn't have the light bulb if they were. Think of everything that our ancestors did. They weren't stupid. Stop discounting their intelligence. They were just as intelligent as you are. We might have better technology, but they had just as many IQ points as you do. So stop discounting them. Now, we look back at South Africa. What happened? Apartheid laws ended because a bunch of retard fucking singers came in there and said, we're going to go into a country we know nothing about and change everything about their culture and get everything to end. Apartheid was ending. They were slowly transitioning. They were trying to build up a black middle class. That never happened because there was so much pressure from everybody. Like, no, we need to build up a black middle class. They never did it. That's why they became the largest welfare state in the world. And that's why we can look to them and say, is welfare good or bad? It's bad. Yes, we need to help out the needy, but that's not how to do it. You know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps is a phrase that I never really understood until I had to do it. Right? And the first mission that you can accomplish is getting that job, getting that employment. From there, instead of just saying, oh, it's a job, work your ass off at it. Get to know, do your job well. Just get in there and do your job to the best of your ability, and you'll find out. And very soon, doors will start opening. Because humans' natural tendency is to want to mentor, unless they're a jaded turd. In which case, avoid those people. Cut them out of your life. Avoid them. You want people that are there to mentor and teach the next generation. You honor the elders, and you teach the young. That's who we are as humans. And in South Africa, that never happened. We never got that far. Nelson Mandela was not only a murderist, he was an admitted communist. And that's exactly what he did and what he wanted to do. Now they run around the streets. The black government in charge right now is running around the streets saying, kill the white guy, kill the white guy, kill the white guy, and it's a state-sponsored song. So, did people from, the music artists from Hollywood and London help at all? No, they made everything tragically worse. And South Africa is on the brink of collapsing. Hell, they turn their power off once every 3 days because they cannot keep up with maintenance. Don't meddle unless you know what you're doing. It's kind of like fixing a military helicopter. Unless you know how to do it, you're just going to fuck it up. So stay out of it until you can go back and do the research. Stop saying things are a social construct, that you're gender fluid, or you feel like a fox today or a cat the next. Yeah, I want to be an Apache. Doesn't mean I am one. We cannot ignore biology, folks. You know, there's a lot of things we can change. There's a lot of things we can do. We can transplant heads now, but we can't change chromosomes. I'm sorry. X and Y. Guys, we have to understand these things. If not, we are doomed. Doomed by history to repeat millions of people that were killed by socialism and communism. I want you to tell your friends, look, do your research on socialism and communism. I'll invite anybody here to debate. Anyone wants to debate, we'll go Google Hangout, Skype, whatever you want. We'll debate socialism versus capitalism. And I'm starting to see, you know, I was an anarcho-capitalist for a while. I was even at one point a socialist. But the funny thing about that is usually when you grow older, socialists, if they don't stay socialists, usually turn into conservatives over time. Anarcho-communists, the same thing. Once they get a business and they start moving on in life and understanding how the world works a little bit, not free market, but just the world in general, they usually become more conservative. For a long time I was an anarcho-capitalist, before that a libertarian, but right now I'm thinking the Founding Fathers weren't stupid when they set up the Constitution. And there are a lot of flaws, but those flaws were created by men. Men. And women too, but it was a misguided interpretation of the Constitution in order to establish some sort of oligarchy for more power for the government or themselves. Wasn't what it was originally intended, was it? We've forgotten what the Constitution means, what it was meant to be, and the spirit of it. We just, that's not what it says because it doesn't fit my agenda for the week, or it doesn't fit with my communist agenda. Socialism and communism, what happened in the 60s, that stupid fucking revolution, that caused most of this. But you can't say it because most of those assholes are in positions of power now. That's the reason we're heading so fast in a tailspin in this country and in countries around the world. If we lose America, we lose the world. I don't think anybody understands how interconnected it is right now. You know, and we need to go back to understanding why and what. The 60s had some great music. Loved the music, but the ideas were dog shit. And we need to recognize them for what they are and start discounting a lot of them. A lot of them. The way they raised children in the 60s, the way that we started educating kids. You start treating boys like dysfunctional girls and scolding them for rebellious behavior. That's what boys do. We rebel. That's who we are. It's our biology. Once again, stop ignoring biology and think you can put a fucking round peg into a square hole. It doesn't work. And if you're a teacher, understand this, gentlemen. Because ladies in the audience, if you're watching this video, you're probably just going to be like, this guy's a crazy bastard, and that's it. But I have friends that are teachers that are men, and they're going right along with this bullshit idea that biology doesn't exist and you can change anyone. No, you can't. You never can. And here's the thing: when you don't name it for what it is, when you don't speak about it for what it is, that's where you start getting monsters. That's where you get the Eric Harris's and Dylan Klebold's and the kid from Sandy Hook. That's how these guys come about, because you're not naming it for what it is. You're ignoring it. It's the thing that doesn't exist. It's the thing with no name. That's more dangerous than naming it and saying, no, you have the potential in all of us to become a monster. Every single human being on the planet can be a monster. But you're not. Same principle. We have to understand it. You can't just dismiss it. If we don't get a hold of this, we will have an oligarchy worse than we have now. We will have a true dictatorship in this country. Hell, Canada's almost there. Trudeau, the son of Fidel Castro, that guy, man, that country's going to hit the ground so hard, and things are going to happen so bad you won't even see it coming. Canada will be the fastest to decline of all countries. Mark my words. Canada's next. London, we're seeing it now. Sweden, we're seeing it now. Germany, France, Greece, Italy. How much more the West you socialists want to destroy? We just want the whole world to burn. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm a prepper, so, hey, I'll be good. How are you going to be? Sorry, guys, kind of a weird undertone for this video, but I'm getting sick of this. I'm getting sick of this. You can almost trace everything bad in the 1900s and 2000s to communism. Almost every single thing. World War II, the atomic bomb, was all brought about because of a necessity to fight socialism and communism. The Cold War, communism. Vietnam, communism. North Korea, communism. Hell, at this point, kill a commie for mommy, And now we're looking at a new Cold War. Come on. You guys we can't be that stupid. And don't discount the generations before you. They were intelligent. You're not giving them credit for how intelligent they actually were. We wouldn't have this country if it wasn't for them. We wouldn't have a lot of the countries in the world. We'd still be infighting and, running for our lives and fearing for our lives every single day. But now we have society and technology and walls, fire, lights. Come on. Sad part is the leaders don't think you're that intelligent. You can't think for yourself, so we're going to have to do it for you, right? So put your head out of your ass. Let's get some things done. We'll talk to you soon.